FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
I want to focus on a local issue. It's infrastructure. Hillary Clinton's campaigning on this right now. She's going to throw all this money at infrastructure spending because the roads are falling apart. Well, part of that may be true. The roads are falling apart, but is a tax increase the only solution? Jim Lembke is my guest right now, former Missouri State Senator. Jim, how are you, sir?
Great, Mark. All I could think of when you were talking about your son was most of the politicians and bureaucrats that I work with, I'm wondering if their brains are fully developed.
I'll bet. That's perfect. That's a perfect observation for it. So Jim, you caught my attention because you put a post up on social media about a meeting you attended this week with some people from the Missouri Department of Transportation and others halfway across the state over in Independence. What was the subject of that meeting?
So the subject, Mark, was transportation funding and what it looks like in the near future for our state. It's actually an issue that has been on the front burner for the last three legislative sessions. There have been tax increase proposals put forth from different representatives and different senators. They have not made it through the process, as you may know. There are, I think, at least one initiative petition on the ballot coming up in November where that money would be targeted towards transportation. And I guess our interest in it was, and I don't know if your listeners know, but I went back to work for one of my former colleagues in the Senate, Senator Rob Shaw, as his chief of staff. So I was there in official capacity, and along with Senator Shaw and Senator Sylvie and Senator Emery, and somebody who's a friend of your show, Bill Eigel, who just won a primary.
Absolutely.
St. Charles. And Bill is a big thinker, and he's been actually working on a transportation plan over the past year. That's actually how we met. And fortunately, out of a room of 100 politicians and bureaucrats and labor bosses, there were 5 of us in the room that said a tax increase wasn't the answer to our problems that plague our state as far as, you know, being able to have the money each year to meet our federal match. If you don't have GR dollars from the state, you're at risk of missing your 4-to-1 match from the federal government. And the problem that we have, Mark, is our system in the state is too large. MoDOT manages over 33,000 miles of roads. And if you compare that to some of our neighboring states, it could be almost as many as double the miles. And this goes back to our political history where at a time in the 50s, there was a deal made by the politicians to take all the lettered routes back from the county. And quite frankly, it's put us in the shape that we're in.
And moving forward, because I've been in some similar meetings where the discussion is we just don't have enough money to do this. What's your answer to that?
Well, first I want to make it very clear to your listeners. I mean, the idea that MoDOT doesn't have any money is just a straight-out fallacy. Their budget this year is $2.4 billion with a B. Let me say that again, $2.4 billion. Now, the road fund is made up from our gas tax, and MoDOT gets 70% of that, and 30% go to the local counties and cities. That's how it works out. That's how it is listed in our Constitution. So going into our roads and bridges from the state level this year, we have $1.68 billion that we're spending on management of our system and repairing roads and bridges. And quite frankly, we find ourselves in the mess that we're in because out of that amount of money, $288 million a year goes for debt service. And you say, for debt service? Well, yeah, a few years back, you remember Amendment 7 or Amendment 3, we actually went out and bonded the money to improve our roads across the state. And we're going to be paying that debt off, I believe, for the next 20 years. We have, I think it's 18 to 20 years left on that debt. So $288 million is just debt service right off the top. And again, I would say that was maybe poor money management by the commission, a few years back. But MoDOT has a lot of money. And what we're saying is the only answer isn't to go back to the taxpayers and raise taxes. We have a $27 billion budget in this state. And just to put it in perspective for you, one program alone, the Medicaid program, Healthcare for the Poor, it serves 18% of Missourians. That program, we spend $9 billion this year in this budget on Healthcare for the Poor. One line within that budget, Mark, the pharmacy line, so drugs for people on Medicaid in the state of Missouri, $1.6 billion. So we're spending more on drugs for 18% of the population than we are on our roads and bridges for 100% of the population.
Yeah, it's a good point. You also draw the conclusion that it's the answer from the establishment. I mean, people who've been elected, they've been in office. This just seems like the answer. And we're in a political season where we have an opportunity to put some people into office who are not part of that establishment.
No, I agree. I think that this is the year of the outsider. I think that the outsider, whether they be small business people or people that have been active in their community but not politicians, I think are going to bring some new ideas, to our state and to our nation. And I think we need that. I think that, the people that have been down there in Jefferson City have made unholy alliances with bureaucrats, with lobbyists, with special interests, and they always look to government for the solution. And I think that what we've got to do is bring some new thinkers in there. And I'm excited about guys like Bill Eigel, who's a small businessman, very successful businessman, who actually employs people and signs the front of the check, that he's going to be down there working on big programs like this.
Yeah.
And we really need to say, what is the answer? What's the 5-year, the 10-year, the 20-year answer to our transportation needs in this state? We're not saying that investment in our infrastructure is not a proper function of good government. We believe it is. But I think that we have to look at our budget as a whole and come up with a plan to say, how are we going to be good stewards of the people's money, not just go back to the people and say, we need more of your money without fixing or addressing the problem. It's
a great point. Jim, are you still taking part in Freedom Talks?
When I went back to work for Senator Schaaf as his chief of staff, I kind of put that on the back burner.
Okay.
I really enjoyed going across the state, talking to people about liberty and freedom and good government and our Constitution. But I've got a pretty full plate now.
Yeah, I bet you do. Jim Lembke, listen, I'm out of time, but I appreciate you giving us some time today. Thought-provoking, and it's a message I wanted folks to hear out there if they think that a tax increase is the only way to address this problem.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Former State Senator Jim Lembke, obviously still involved in the process, and good to know that we have folks out there with common sense taking a look at this who don't just have the same answer to the problem every time around.